Mr. Simone again from Hampton Middle School. For this video, we want to be able to calculate the volume for a cone. In class, we actually looked at how we can derive the volume equation of a cone from a cylinder. The equation for a cylinder was volume equals pi times radius squared times height, or pi r squared h. And what we actually found is that if you have a cone and a cylinder, if they have the same circular base, the same area, and the same heights, we actually found out that the volume for the cone is 1/3 the size. So for a cone, our equation is V equals 1/3 times that pi r squared, which is the circle, or the base, times our height. At our school, we sometimes will manipulate this equation a little bit to make it a little easier for the kids to use. So we actually use the volume is equal to pi times r squared times h, all divided by 3. All right, because taking 1/3 of a quantity is the same thing as taking that quantity, whatever it is, and dividing it by 3. We do have some teachers that take a little further to make life a little easier. They'll actually write the volume is equal to pi times radius times height, and all divided by 3. So you can use whatever equation you would like, whatever you're more comfortable with. They should all obviously give you the same result. For today, though, I'm going to use the middle one. I find that one to be a little bit easier for kids, especially with the fraction outside, can kind of confuse some of us. So the first thing that we do when we look at a cone, I always tell my students to identify the radius and the height. All right, those two things are some of the most important things. Sometimes the radius is given to you actually within the circle. All right, it is the distance from the midpoint to the edge. Or sometimes you may have an example like this where you're actually given the diameter and your job is to find half that. So find out what the radius is. For cones, for the height, sometimes the height's on the outside of your picture, or of the volume you're trying to find, and other times the volume is on the inside, like it is here. And if you look clearly, you can actually see how this measurement, the 6 meters, is the height, and it is perpendicular, all right, to that measurement there, which is the diameter. All right, but ultimately our job is to identify the radius, identify the height, and then actually plug those values into our equation. For pi, we do use 3.14, but there are ways to write your answer in terms of pi, which are actually more exact. All right, our radius here is going to be 3 centimeters, and our height is going to be 7. Once we identify those two measurements, we then substitute those values into the volume equation. All right, so our volume is going to be equal to pi, and we're going to use radius squared, so I'm going to do 3 squared times the height, which is 7, and that whole quantity divided by 3. Some teachers use parentheses to kind of show ownership, so they'll say like r squared, and they'll kind of put that in parentheses. But at our school, it's acceptable to just use the multiplication sign, the little dots in between. Next step is to just kind of simplify this top a little bit. We end up with pi times 3 squared is going to be 9 times 7, all over 3. Continue this again. You're going to end up with your volume equaling pi times 63 over 3. Now, if you wanted to, you could use a calculator. You could actually multiply pi by 63 and then divide by 3. But some teachers will ask you to try to simplify the problem out a little bit. So if we end up with, pi times 63 over 3, they may ask you, hey, can you kind of simplify the values? Do 63 divided by 3, and you can do that. I'm going to do that over here for this side, but I will show you a different technique for this. So 63 divided by 3 is going to get us 21 over 1, which is the same thing as writing the volume is equal to pi times 21. One of the things you can do, and what I ask you to do, is if you do put your answer in terms of pi, that you actually write this as 21 pi. This is the most exact answer. We just have to include the units. So this will be centimeters cubed. and you can leave your answer in that term, okay? Or if you wanted to, you could actually multiply the value out. So let's say you got to this step and instead you wanted to use your 3.14 for pi. Again, that's an approximation. We could multiply 3.14 times that 63 on top to get 197, no, I'm sorry, not 197. Yeah, no, that's right. 197 and 82 hundredths, all divided by 3. Divide that value out, and you can end up with an approximate answer for your volume of 65 and 94 hundredths centimeters cubed. All right. You'll notice that I put for volume, I put the weight equal sign because, again, this is an approximation because pi is irrational. So we're trying to get really, really close to the actual volume. But if we put our answer in terms of pi, so there's 21 pi centimeters cubed, that's actually the more exact answer. And some schools are different. They may ask you to put your answer in terms of pi. Some may actually ask you to write the decimal value out. All right, let's take a look at another example. For this one, for number 2, again, I tell my students to always identify the radius and the height. This measurement, this 2 meters, is the diameter. So again, half of that is your radius. So we're going to use 1 for radius. And our height is 6. We'll continue to use the formula. So volume equals pi r squared h divided by 3. Substitute our numbers in. We end up with volume equals pi times 1 squared times 6 all over 3. Simplify this a little bit further. You're going to end up with, I'm just going to kind of rewrite this a little bit neater. So 1 squared is 1 times 6, which is going to give us 6 pi on top all over 3. We can simplify this. The 6 and the 3, you might notice, you might see that, you might not. If you do see it, you can simplify this to just being 2 pi. And you can write your answer as 2 pi, and this is meters cubed. That's acceptable. If you didn't want to do that and you wanted to use a calculator, you could actually do 6 times pi. So this top part, 6 times pi, which is going to give you an answer of 18 and 84 hundredths, or 18.84. Divide the whole quantity by that 3, and you're going to get a decimal answer of 6 and 28. 6 and 28 hundredths as a decimal. The key thing again is just to write your final answer with the units. So I'm just going to I'll write it down here. 6 and 28 hundredths meters cubed as your volume. So again, 2 examples. I apologize, I kind of lost some space here, but these are 2 examples of possible cones that you'll be asked to find the volume of. Again, 2 important things. One being always identify the radius and height, and then just making sure that you substitute your numbers in. Teachers may ask you to write your answer in terms of pi. They may ask you to kind of simplify it in a decimal form. For the middle school, I tend to accept both, but I know that some teachers at our school prefer the decimal value. So hope this helped, and continue watching and continue practicing. Thanks.